The Dice Tower, episode 551, Favorite Rollin' Rights.
The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by USAopoly. Share laughter and make memories. Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's show, Mandi and I talk all about the Rollin' Right style game, revisit Essen with Eric, and get your thoughts on game hype and victory points. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
Mandi, there is going to be a lot going on in the next few weeks. Wow, you're like really busy.
I know, it's like, is that a good thing? It's game related, so I think it's a good thing.
Well, I'm excited that you're going to the Gathering of Friends up in Canada. So how far is the event from you?
So it's close. Well, I think it's actually happening on the U.S. side of Niagara. So in Niagara, but on the U.S. side. Yeah. So Ottawa, people who are from Toronto are going to find this closer. So Ottawa to Toronto is about 4 hours. And then from Toronto to Niagara, it's another hour and a half.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a fair piece away.
Yeah. So for me, it's, it's a drive. But for people in Toronto, it's great. Just they can, go to work during the week and then head over on the weekend. So it's happening now. So I can't wait to get there because I'm seeing how much fun everyone is having. But I don't get there till next week. Woo.
That's okay. I'm sure you will have a wonderful time once you're there. Although it sounds like you have a very busy agenda because I know of at least one very fun thing that you're going to do while you're there.
Well, we have been asked many times about maybe switching up the episodes, maybe you with Eric, me with Tom. Well, guess what? We're making your dreams come true. And I will be doing an episode, specifically episode 552, with Tom at the Gathering of Friends. And we'll be looking at games that teach English.
And what I love about this one is it kind of elbows you into doing a top 10 list. Da, 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 yay!
I swear Tom does this on purpose.
Oh, he totally did it on purpose. No doubt.
Top 10? Great. Mandi, want to do it?
I think that'll be fun. I'm very excited to hear all about your Gathering of Friends adventures, but also to listen to the episode that you record with Tom. That'll be super duper fun.
But I'm not the only one recording with someone different. Why don't you tell everyone what you're going to be up to?
Well, I mean, it's no fair. If you get to record with Tom, poor Eric and I are all left out. So we've banded together to do our own episode together right after that for episode 553. And Eric and I will be recording that episode. I honestly don't know what we're going to be talking about yet, but I'm sure that it will be fun no matter what we do. I don't know, we might try to do an all access gaming or something because, Eric has young kids. I have young kids kind of in the same age range, quite frankly. And I think it will be super fun to talk to him on an episode about our family gaming adventures and all that stuff. But we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe somebody will drop some suggestions in our email inbox or something like that.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be pretty darn fantastic.
And then you're headed down to California soon?
I know. And on the other side,
geography is not my strong suit. I have no idea where these things are.
You and me both. We're on the same page there. So I will be with Geek and Sundry on international. Wow, that sounded like a weird accent. International table. I don't know where that came from. International Tabletop Day. Playing some flip ships and other games. Yeah, so I'm going to be doing some stuff with Renegade. I'm really excited about that. And so that'll be Geek and Sundry International Tabletop Day. And I believe it'll be some streaming happening online. So very much looking forward to that. And I'll be meeting up with hopefully meeting up with the infamous Brothers Murph.
Oh, I'm super jealous.
They're okay, so cool.
Now I'm jealous.
I get to see them first.
Yeah, Nick and Mike are really great guys. They're so darn funny.
They are. And genuinely nice people. I know I've dropped in on their Twitch streams and they've dropped in on ours, and always a good time. I don't know why every time I drop in, the conversation turns to food, poutine, of course. And it's great because there's a ton of Canadians in the chat. They're like, what? Mandy, I live in Montreal. I'm heading down the street right now. And they tell me about this amazing poutine they're going to get. I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. And the guys are always like, really? Like, this sounds amazing. How are we not in Canada right now? I'm so distracting.
Can you stop talking about French fries? I'm super duper hungry.
I know okay. Let's just not go there.
And there's one more thing I think we wanted to bring up really quickly, and that is path of play. And Mandi, I know that you've been talking to Mike about this a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, for sure. So it's definitely something that we're both kind of sort of involved in it, and I'm hoping to be a bit more involved. But Mike Primo is heading this up, and Mike Primo works for CBC. You've probably seen him a little bit in the gaming world. Path of Play is looking at families, supporting families who are living with autism. So it could be a child or someone in the family that has autism, and they're working together with that. And I know specifically this has touched Mike's family as well. So what's coming up, the reason why we're talking about it is because International Tabletop Day is coming up, and Path of Play has a play day. It's an annual gaming event that supports families living with autism, and it promotes play as a means for inclusion, empathy, and acceptance. So I know in this specific case, Mike has a great basement. He's got pinball machines and the crazy amount of games that he has down there. It's insane. So really fun day that they're inviting people to come to. And if you can't obviously come to this event, they're also suggesting having a gaming event at your place and celebrating that way with them. So something, if you want to look more details into it, or you want to have more details about it, you can check out Path of Play on Facebook, and you'll find more information there.
Oh, that's really, really cool. I love how the gaming community in general just seems to come together around really important causes that and just contributes positively back. And I just think that's super duper cool. So I'm really glad that is happening on April 28th. Thanks, Mandi.
Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to seeing a bit more.
Well, I am excited for the rest of this episode, especially because we are going to talk about some of our favorite style games, maybe a little different from our usual episode, but we were talking about it last episode about maybe digging into roll and write games, dun dun dun, a little bit more.
And it's in a list.
It's in a list.
It's a listing of games. That's as far as it's going to go.
Your ongoing quest to skirt the rules of top tens.
I refuse
Mandi,
to
you
succumb.
got mad skills.
Yes.
But I'm excited. So everybody, thank you for joining us. And I hope that you will stick around as we dig into the world of roll and write games.
How does it feel?
Well, Mandi, I'm going to kind of steal your idea here because I love that you thought it was really important for us to kind of define a roll and write game because there's lots of people that have no idea what we're talking about when we say that, right?
Absolutely. And it's funny because I think we take that for granted a little bit, like, oh yeah, it's roll and write, and assume that people know. And I'm like, wait a second, we've actually been asked, and you specifically, what's a roll and write? And I'm like, oh wow, just open my eyes, like, yeah, okay, we probably should talk about what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think even in last episode, Tom talked a little bit about it with steamrollers, right. and gave a quick overview. But just to kind of reiterate, roll and write games. Roll and write is a term that kind of popped up just a couple of years ago. You can look on BGG, and I think there's a pen and paper category too. And I mean, I think that arguably that's accurate. But I think there was sometimes confusion between a tabletop RPG pen and paper kind of game and the kind of game that we're talking about here. So roll and write really refers to a game that has a randomization element and a writing or drawing element. And roll and write, it's often dice and score sheets. And really the dominant common roll and write game that everybody owns or has played is Yahtzee. Yahtzee. And hey, I grew up loving Yahtzee. Maybe that's partly why I like roll and write games so much today. So we're going to talk more about very specific roll and writes in the next few minutes, but that's really what we're talking about. Now, there are other types of games that use a different element for randomization. There's a game called Avenue that we might talk about, spoiler alert, talk a little bit more about, that uses cards. There's a game called 20 Express that uses tiles that are pulled out of a bag that, and then people are writing on score sheets. And really, even though you're not rolling dice, which is that rolling part of the term, I think just common, simple terms are a good thing, right? To kind of form a language and a common language. So roll and write is kind of what the community seems to have latched onto and moved forward with. And that's really what we're going to talk about. And, Mandi, for me, this has to be one of my all-time favorite genres or styles of games. Well,
Oh, yes. I know. Like, I'm afraid to ask how many you actually own.
All of them.
Yeah, I figured.
But, I just love this I love how simple they are and portable they are, but how diverse and rewarding they can be. There's just something, I just enjoy them. And Mandi, what it seems like, though, you've always enjoyed them, but is it just me, or have you kind of been digging in deeper into roll and writes lately?
I definitely have been. I find that I generally kind of gear toward heavier games, but I'm like, there's not always a time and place for that. Sometimes you just want something that, it's a little more accessible for other people. Like, I find they're really great when I'm traveling, or people are new to gaming. Hey, toss that out. So, let's play that. And people really like them. So I'm like, what am I doing? Why do I not have more of these? And then I hear you talk about them. And of course, the newest, latest, greatest. I'm like, okay, I want it now. So it's all your fault.
Well, no, because once you play them, they really speak for themselves. And I think we've been talking about them a lot, and we wanted to kind of do a focus on them because helping y'all out there better understand the breadth of offerings in this niche and it's growing, right? We are going to get more and more of these games over the next months. It's kind of a thing right now, and I hope it's a thing that lasts, but you never know with, gaming trends. They come and they go. But
exactly.
Beyond Yahtzee, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking Yahtzee, because I love me some Yahtzee.
It's good.
But there's more out there, right?
Absolutely.
And Mandi and I were talking about this. I'm like, well, maybe we'll do a top 10. And then, of course, that moment of, wait a minute.
This is as close to a top 10 as you're going to get. So you're welcome.
Until next episode with Tom.
That's because I'm being forced against my will. No, I'm actually not. Read between the lines, people. No, I'm joking.
It'll be okay. So we're kind of skirting the system. But Mandi and I, we wrote down some of our favorite roll and writes, and then we kind of looked at our lists, and there was definitely overlap. So let's talk about some of our favorites, and then maybe we can talk about a few that didn't overlap, whether it's the ones we didn't play or whether we have different opinions on them or what have you.
All right, so let's jump right in for number. Oh, sorry, we're not doing that. Okay, it's you're gonna hate me after this episode. Okay, so Quinto, designed by Bernhard Locke and Uwe Rapp. Artist is Oliver Freudenreich, and publisher is Arclight Gigamic and Nürnberger Spikarten Verlag. I hope I pronounced that properly.
Oh my gosh, you're so brave. I just always say NSV.
Oh.
I cheat.
Well, I probably should have, but there you go. I gave it a go.
You did great.
Thank you. So in Quinto, you're trying to fill the rows on your score sheets with high numbers, and in a lot of roll and writes, you want to do this as quickly as possible to try and score the most points. This is great because, of course, it has different colored dice, and what's going to happen is you're going to get a score sheet which have 3 colored rows with circles and some pentagon shapes. On a turn, a player is going to roll 1 to 3 dice, and the dice are the same colors of the rows, which is orange, yellow, and purple. Each player can place whatever sum is rolled into an empty shape in a row that matches the color of one of the dice. Okay, so if you're rolling all the dice and you want it in purple, you got to take purple has to be in at least the sum of the 2 dice. So the 2 rules you want to follow is that all numbers in a row must increase from left to right. That's where it gets tricky. And no number can be repeated in a vertical column. I'm telling you, this happens often, and if it does, I think the rule is if you end up placing it in there, don't you have to? Do you get to move it, or it's just?
No, you're locked. You mess up.
You mess up.
You cannot do it. It's against the rules.
Okay, because there's a couple where they let you move it, but this one is just gone. So if the active player, so the player that's rolling the dice, cannot enter a number on their sheet, then you have to mark, I think in German it's like failure, but you must mark basically the box, which is going to give you negative points at the end of the game. I think it's this game, right? Because there's a few of them where they don't give you negative points, but you just ends the game. So the game ends when someone has filled 2 rows on their score sheet, or when someone has basically hit all those missed throws or failures, and I think there's 4. And then for scoring, you're scoring for each completed column, and the player scores points equal to the number in that column's pentagon. So those pentagons that we were talking about, if you complete the column of pentagons, you get points for those. Each incomplete row, you score 1 point per number in that row. And then for each failure that you have, you lose 5 points. Yeah, it's a lot
Brutal.
going on for such a little game. But whoever has the most points wins. I love this game. What about you?
Oh, yeah. Quinto, if I had to do a top 10, Quinto would likely be in it. It almost epitomizes the pure roll and write experience to me. It's themeless. It's simple. It uses 3 basic 6-sided dice and score sheets. But man, oh man, there is some depth there.
Absolutely.
That freedom of choice of where you put the numbers, and what you cannot underestimate is which dice you choose to roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, if I roll just the purple die, I'm going to have a chance to get a 1 through a 6 value, right? I'm never going to get a 12 value if I only roll 1 die. But I have to write it in the purple row. And then, okay, well, if I combine numbers, so if I need let's say if I need a 4, do I roll 2 die? Like, it's, oh my gosh. Calculating which dice you roll is a huge part of the game. And at least in the games I play, somehow that just brings so much energy. You can imagine this kind of themeless little simple game might not have a lot of energy, but literally in games we play, people are sitting around the table chanting and pounding on the table. I'm not joking. Roll them all. Roll them all. Roll them all, right? And you're hemming and hawing about which, because that impacts other people.
Right.
Right, because everybody is active. And that's another thing that just is so great. Everybody's active and engaged the whole game. There's just no downtime. Yeah, man, this is a good one.
It's so good. I'm laughing at your roll the ball because what's that game we play? Elf Nimmt, which I think is 11 takes it, if I'm not mistaken, in English.
Yep.
And it's take a pile. Take a pile. So look, it's so funny how we have these chants. But anyway, I think Quinto's...
There's another Victory Points topic some days. Like, what table chants do you have?
Oh my goodness, taking note. We are definitely doing this on another Victory Point segment. But Quinto, love it. I'm actually getting another copy that I can keep at work, and then another that I can travel with because it's fantastic.
Next up, Avenue, right? He hinted at that just a couple of minutes ago, actually, because Avenue uses cards, not dice. But
right.
I still am firmly in the camp of it falls under that quote unquote roll and write umbrella. Again, clean, simple, common terms. Avenue's designed by Eile Svensson and Christian Ostby. Artist is Garen Bone, and it's published by Aporta Games. And Avenue, and also we should mention that Avenue was actually, I guess, redone. I don't know if that's the right term really here. And you can also get a version of the game called Kodama from Indie Boards and Cards. It has a different theme, but is mechanically identical with a few more options.
That the Kokoro?
Kokoro. You're right. Kokoro. Not
okay.
Kodama. Kokoro, set in the Kodama universe.
Exactly.
Bless you, Mandy, for keeping me on track. I adore
you were like 90% there, so I knew what you meant.
I'm riding the roll and write high right now, so I can only be accountable for like 20% of what comes out of my mouth right now. I apologize.
You're allowed.
But Avenue or Kokoro, but let's focus on Avenue. You have a score sheet and it's a grid and there's a few little like cabins or houses and then there's grapes all over it. Purple and green grapes. And ultimately what these cards have are paths, different L-shaped paths, straight vertical paths, horizontal line paths. And when a card's flipped over, you just draw in one of the little grid boxes on your score sheet, draw that path. And the point is you're trying to connect grapes to these different buildings that are labeled A, B, C, D, E, F. There's 6 of them. A, B, C, D, E, F. There you go. 7 of them? Anyway.
Well, one gets removed, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
At the end of the game, well, not at the end of the game, at the end of the round, you're going to score points based on the grapes that you've managed to connect to a specific lettered building. You never know what order these buildings are going to happen, and it's secret, right? So you're going to flip over this building card. It says, oh, this round, you're scoring building B. And then you're trying to draw paths to go to B. But then you don't know what the next building's going to score. And really, it's a game of optimization. You want, ideally, you get this long single path that connects these buildings magically in a very kind of specific but unpredictable order so that you can maximize your points. And there's another element where there are gray cards and gold cards. And you never know how long you have in a given round because the round ends when 4 golden cards are flipped up. Whenever that 4th golden card flips up, that's your last card and you're over for that round. So maybe you won't even manage to connect to your building at all. And you're really playing the probability. You're really trying to be smart and predictive in your paths. And it's so simple and so clever. And you can play with literally any number of people because everybody has access to the same information at the same time. You can play totally simultaneously. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, Avenue is one I was pleasantly surprised. I thought, oh, well, it's cards and, it's not a true roll and write. So who knows what's going to happen? Maybe it's, it looks like it's going to be all right. I was so wrong. I love it so much. And I love the fact that you can play it with literally any number of players. You can play it virtually. I've seen people play it, with teams virtually, which I think is fantastic. Now, I have a true ADHD mind, and you should see my sheet when it's all said and done. I have paths going over to the left, paths to the right. I'm like, wow. My final score was what now? 35 points. Meanwhile, my friend's like 135 points. I'm like, wow, you are awesome at this game, but I still have fun playing it. You know what I mean? And I love the fact at the bottom of the sheets, it has the shapes.
Yeah, it has a little key that's very handy.
So I don't have to turn and go, okay, like, what does this look like this way? No, it's right at the bottom of the sheet for you. So there's no second guessing. So I actually really appreciate that. I don't have that spatial mind. So I thought that was great. But Avenue, fantastic. I think everybody should own it.
I agree. And the other just random nugget I want to drop in is that this is the design team behind a game called Santa Maria that we've talked about on the show just a few episodes ago. And that was kind of dice drafting and you had tiles and you were connecting like rows and things like that. You can see the bones. You can see a little common design thread between those games. Yeah. So if you're looking for if you love Santa Maria and you're like, oh, I wish there was a roll and write version.
There you go.
Or if you love Avenue and you're like, oh, I wish I had a little more meat, you can always check out Santa Maria and listen to a couple episodes ago to our opinions on that one too.
Exactly. All right. So we're going to move into another favorite, 21. This is designed by Stefan Bendorf and Reinhard Staup, published by NSV and White Goblin Games. Each player in 21 is going to receive score sheets like all the others. Okay. And each sheet has 5 horizontal rows and you're going to get 6 colored dice pictured on this sheet. Now, what's interesting here is that not all of them have the same configuration of dice. Like you might have the black one first on your sheet and someone else may have the blue one first. This is important because I noticed this the other day, actually, when I was playing in the rows, the numbers decrease in the rows when you get to the bottom row. And it's funny how I never noticed that before. Wow. And I was like, okay, that's actually very interesting. So to score points, you want to try, players need to fill out the dice numbers on their sheet. And you want to do this like the other game I was talking about earlier, as quickly as possible to kind of end the game before all the other players have time to do that. So the active player is going to roll all the dice and then decide, am I going to keep this roll or am I going to try rolling again? However, if the player rolls any ones there, they have to be kept, but they can re-roll all the other dice. Once that happens, you're looking to keep dice that are either the same, so equal to or less than dice on your sheet. And they have to match the color as well. So if you are unable to put a number value on your sheet, so for example, let's say I had rolled a 5 in a green die and the green on my sheet was a 4, wouldn't be able to write that down. However, if it was a 2 and I had a 5, I could write that down and take a lesser amount of points or potentially wait for the next round. If you cannot write any numbers down or choose not to, you have to mark off the die that's furthest to the left. Mm-hmm. That could be a really large number. You're losing a lot of points. So what you want to do is try and complete a row. And if you can get exact values, you're also going to get bonus points for these exact values. So, I mean, those are really beneficial for you in the game to give you bigger points. So once you've filled out a row, then you can move on to the next. So you want to do that until you obviously get down to the bottom of the sheet, fill them all out, and then the game is going to end. The game will end when a player finishes their last row. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it.
All right, I think that's it. So the game ends, like I said, when the player completes their 5th row, and then you just count out the points to see who's won. This you showed me, Suzanne, and I think we played with a few people at, was it BGG Con?
Something like that.
Or
we were in a hotel room somewhere. I don't remember.
It was somewhere. I don't know where it was, but it was at a con somewhere. So, what do you think? I know you love it because you recommended it to me.
Well, I thought, okay, well, I think it's fabulous. And, you know, Stefan Bendorf and Reinhard Stope, they're an amazing design team. And we're actually going to probably talk about another one of their games in a few minutes. But, you know, Reinhard Stope has done some really great card games like Dick Drawn and things like that. These little Amigo Spiel or NSV card games that are just so darn simple and clever. And then, of course, Stefan Bendorf, I almost look at Stefan Bendorf as the not the father of roll and write games, but just so influential and just so brilliant when it comes to this format. And 21 just shines because it really showcases how these two designers can come together and make a brilliant game. It is so simple and straightforward, but incredibly clever. And that tension between the two elements that you talked about, Mandi, one, the exact match and trying to get those bonus points because those points really make a difference, but finishing those rows and racing to the end. You can take either approach and win the game. There's enough flexibility in the game to do that, which I think adds great tension. And then the way that the dice work with the reroll and, you know, as the game's progressing, you are definitely checking out what other people are doing and making decisions based on what other people need as well. And you're balancing, hey, this is a good roll for me, but it's a great roll for Mandi. And you know what? That's not going to happen. So re-roll. And then I get to listen to Mandi yell and cry. And it's awesome.
Exactly.
But no, I think, I don't know. I think for again, these simple, straightforward, themeless roll and writes, 21 has to be one of the best. What do you like about it, Mandi?
It's funny because when you start explaining it, it's not as simple as something like Qwix, for example, to explain. There's actually a little bit more going on. It's not difficult, but explaining it first, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess there's a little bit happening there. I think I just like the fact that it gives you a little bit of decision. It's not overly complex, but it's not super simple because now exactly what you were saying, you're deciding, do you want to rush the game or do you want to actually try and get as much points as possible or as many points as possible by getting those exact matches? I like having those slight decisions, but it's not overly difficult. I like this one because I can travel with it and I've taught it to people and they really enjoy it. And that's, I mean, most roll and writes for the most part. That's why. But this one in particular strikes a chord with a lot of people. They just really seem to, I don't know how to put this nicely, but they really seem to like affecting other people's play.
For sure.
I know that sounds bad, but that's why a lot of people like it. But it's not outright aggressive.
Yeah, there's some measure of kind of passive interaction. I don't know how you would phrase that, but yeah, it's not super aggressive until it is.
Until it is. But I do like that interactivity. Everyone's laughing, having fun. No. Wait, I'm going to re-roll because they're seeing everyone's reactions and, oh, you wanted that? Okay, I'm going to re-roll. So I think people like that interactivity. So 21.
21. Next up, Castles of Burgundy. Dun, dun, dun. The dice game. I mean, I was thrilled. You know, they came out with Castles of Burgundy is such a central focal game in the hobby now. And then they came out with the card game, which I quite enjoyed. And then they came out with the dice game, which then fired the card game for me in many ways. Designed by Stefan Feld and Christophe Toussaint. Artist is Julian Delval and Harold Lieske. Harold Lieske. Harold.
Okay, I was struggling earlier tonight.
Aaliyah and Ravensburger published it. And, you know, just talk about a game that makes you think of the inspiration game, but play in a very different way. You know, what you're going to do in Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, is, first of all, it includes, I think, how many, Mandy? 6 different score sheets?
Yeah.
A number of different layouts. There's
quite a few in there. Yes.
Now, players all play the same layout at the same time, but you can play different boards. And just like in Castles of Burgundy, where you have the different starting boards, right, that you can choose to play with. It's the exact same in the dice game. So you pick which sheet, which map, or however you want to call it, that you want to play with. And then you get some custom dice. And these dice indicate a color and a number. And you're basically trying to fill up your board as you go. And again, it is one of these games where everybody is active on every turn, which I just love that. And again, it's a game that you can technically play with as many people as you want to. There's no dice drafting or priority or anything like that as you go. So another thing that I love about it. So as you're rolling these dice, basically you're writing in numbers, and there are going to be rules about the numbers you can write based on the terrain type or hexagon shape type, right? So animals will have different rules than castles, which will have different rules than forests and things like that. So maybe if they're touching, they have to match, or maybe they have to be one higher or lower, that kind of thing. And so you learn those rules. They're pretty simple to rule. Then you roll these dice, you make your choices, you write it down, and you go from there. When you complete little sections, you can get bonus actions that give you some flexibility so that you're not totally beholden to what the dice roll are. It lets you mitigate that luck of the die, which, Mandy, I think in a game like this is pretty much crucial for the game to be quality, right? You have to have something to mitigate the luck.
Absolutely. Especially in Castles. It's a game like Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah, for sure. Where there's strategic decisions to make. And if you just can't get that one number you need, it just would definitely sour the game. But thankfully, I think Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, has enough to flexibility to let you control to have some measure of control over that. So you don't feel upset when you can't get the roll. There's an interesting timing element because there's this time die, and you never are quite sure how much time you're going to have in a given round. Everybody gets the same amount of time. You just can't predict, right?
Right.
And overall, I think, I don't know, Mandy, how long does a gameplay take?
I'm trying to think. Like, when the first time we played it was in Essen, actually. And did it take us 25, 30 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, it's there? 30 to 40 minutes, probably. There's a little more meat in it.
Right. There's a little bit more. And when I say downtime, it's just more people trying to think of what they want to do action-wise. It's not a quick... It's not as much of a race as some of the other ones. So, yeah, there definitely is a bit more thought process.
No, it's a good point. Happening. This is not a race one, whereas like 21 very clearly has a race element. Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, clearly does not. And it's definitely all about the choices that you're making as you're trying to optimize. You get a starting, you all have the same map, but you get to make a choice up front about where you're going to start with a bonus. And that definitely sets you in a certain direction, I think, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely.
And, I think it doesn't in any way replace Castles of Burgundy. It's a very different game. But I think it's very rewarding on its own, and it makes you think of Castles of Burgundy. It does feel like it belongs very distinctly in that family. If there's a family games, Castles of Burgundy, right, is one that's doing it. And Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, slots right in there. I think it's a beautiful example of how a roll and write game, how they're evolving, and how game designers are playing in this space and adding depth and complexity and interesting decisions and different ways to mitigate the randomization element. And so it has just enough to keep each game interesting, but not so much that you feel out of control.
Yes, and we have a couple others that are on the list that kind of fall into this category. Actually, the next one we're going to talk about, I think, also falls into this category. But yes, I definitely think that you can see the progression of it's, you know, where you have the fun, light, simple, racing ones, and then you run into ones like this where you have some slightly strategic decisions, especially one like this where it's tied to a game which is, you know, has a lot of strategy. So I have some issues with it's the art. And it's not even just with, it's the original game. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my stuff and felt games, but I have issues with the fact that the art, people were, you know, had said, maybe we, you know, need to look at changing it, especially like the tiles were really small, hard to read. And I thought, okay, well, they're coming out with the card game. That's going to change. No, it literally was the same art, but now in a card game, even smaller. And then the dice game comes out. Okay, maybe they're going to... No, here we go again. I feel like it's a deja vu I'm living in, and it's even smaller. So I that's my one concern with this game. I thought maybe perhaps I would have updated the art a little bit or just made it fit a little better so it just wasn't, you know, hurting your eyes. But I guess they wanted to keep a constant theme.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. The other thing we learned, which is totally random, is pencils aren't great on the paper. You can't, there's something weird about the texture. So you have to pull out a set of pens if you want to be able to see the writing on for sure.
Yeah. Or laminate like we do for a lot of the other ones, which something I was going to mention at the end. But yes, a laminator is your friend. So.
Yeah. Oh, I love my laminator.
So that's Castles of Burgundy, the dice game. So next on the list is this one is a little dear to my heart, and I think Suzanne too, because I feel like we've followed its progression. But Steamrollers, and this is designed by Mark Garretts. Artist is Benjamin Benito. The publisher is Flatline Games, Portal Games, and recently Stronghold Games. So the objective players are using dice to build the best railway network. You're trying to upgrade your engine, and you're trying to beat opponents by delivering cargo. So already, I'm sure people are going, ooh, this sounds like a lot of other games that I played, but it's a roll and write. So each round, a certain number of dice are rolled, and it depends on how many players are playing. And basically, the players are going to draft a die to perform an action. And I had listed some of them before, and this can include upgrading your engine, delivering cargo, because on the board, you're going to see there are different pieces of cargo that you can deliver depending on if you're able to make the connection with your rails. When you pick a die, there are white dice, and then they have a black die. And the black die, when that's rolled, it's basically letting you know the shape of rail that you can draw on your sheet. So, and then the number that's you choose on your die, if you decide to draw a rail, is the area where you can actually put it. Right. So based on the number on your sheet, which kind of looks like a map, upgrading your engine is great because it allows you to move a little bit further. And in the newer version of this one, too, there are abilities. They had it in the other one as well, but there are cards you can get that give you abilities, like you can have an extended, you can extend your engine level, like I think it goes to 6 now, and it can be unlimited and things like that. And then there's also objectives you can try and complete by delivering this cargo, which is going to give you additional victory points at the end of the game. So the game ends once the cities on the supply board have been emptied, and then it will be over at the end of the round. Players will total up all their points, and then you get additional points for your network, your engine, and your cards, and then the player with the most points wins. So that's a very condensed version, but that's really the game. And it's funny because when you see this box, it's not like your typical small roll and write box. It's a game box, like it's a substantial game box. So it's interesting how it doesn't fit that mold, but I actually find when you're reading the rules, it's very straightforward and easy to follow. This appealed so much to a lot of the 18XX gentlemen in the
Sure.
group that I play with, they were like, one of the guys in particular was like, oh, he's like, Mandy, you're bringing that Steamrollers game. I wouldn't mind jumping in on that. He's
That's
like,
awesome.
It was so great. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, we'll do a trade. You teach me 18XX and then I'll teach you the roll and write. He's like, it's a deal. And he really enjoyed it. And he's like, you know what? He's like, just because I play these 18XX games doesn't mean that I can't play, a lighter type of game that has that railroad element. He's like, I love that. He's like, it's a nice change, but it's still giving me some elements that I like from the other types of games that I play. So I really liked this one. I liked this one from day one, but I actually liked some of the additions they made because it was on Kickstarter with the objective cards, because that was not something that was in the original. And I know Suzanne and I have been with this from day one, and I know we've posted about it quite a bit, but I really enjoyed it. I had one friend who wasn't crazy about it, but I don't think he was crazy about the whole concept of the game. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was easy enough to me.
You have one former friend that didn't like it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, isn't that what I said? But I really enjoyed it. And this one plays, it's a bit longer. I think it plays in about 45 minutes, possibly to an hour, depending how many people are playing. And I think it plays solo to, is it 5? It's a higher player count.
Oh, gosh. I don't know the max player count, but I definitely play solo because I have played it a bunch solo.
Yeah. What do you think about it? I mean, I'm saying that, you've been following it like me, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love it. And, it was great to hear Tom talk about it just last week and that he loves it. I was so happy to hear that because I'm very passionate about Steamrollers. I think if I had to do a top 10, this would be either my number 1 or my number 2. It is that dang good. It's just so rewarding to play. It has so much depth and not complexity, but it just has interesting choices and the random setup of the cargo up front. And, you can make it harder by throwing in mountains that, create unpassable areas and things like that. It's just incredibly flipping clever and I adore it. I think Steamrollers is fan-flippin-tastic, and it really does highlight that the format, this, quote-unquote roll and write format, it can have some real meat. It can have some real bite. There, you can make a very, very compelling game out of it, for sure.
Absolutely. So definitely a favorite of both of ours. That's hence the reason it's on the list, but that is Steamrollers.
Up next, I wanted to talk about Noch Mal. Now, for those of you who live in the States or Canada or other areas, this is something that's pretty much easiest to get in Europe. It's a little harder to get, at least out here in the West, but I certainly think it's worth the effort. The designers are 2 of my favorite designers of all time, Inka and Marcus Brand, those darn geniuses behind Exit Games. Woo! And the publisher is Schmidt Spiel. This is, it's interesting because with games like Steamrollers or Avenue, they're putting some kind of theme on it. Avenue has this winery theme. Steamrollers obviously has a train theme. And then you get games like 21 or Noch Mal that's like, forget theme. You get a grid of numbers. Have fun. And boy, oh boy, do I ever.
Yes.
With Noch Mal, you're going to get the score pad, and it is not a grid of numbers, but it is a colorful grid of boxes. And if you look at it, it almost looks like polyominoes, these Tetris-style pieces in different colors just in this grid. And then each of the columns is lettered, and then there's some numbers below it. And basically, as you are playing the game, there are dice that indicate a color and a number. And the number will be the number of squares you get to mark off, and the color is, don't surprise, the color section that you get to mark it off on. And ultimately, you score points by marking off columns. And when you manage to X off a column vertically, you're going to score some points. Also, when you manage to fill in all the red or all the blue, when you fill in a complete color block, you'll get points there too. But keep in mind, again, those polyomino shapes, they're spread out all over this sheet. It's not like there's one red section. There's little red bits all over the score sheet. There's little yellow bits all over the score sheet. And there are stars on some of the blocks. And if you don't mark off a star, you're going to get hit for negative points at the end of the game. There are wilds, so that you can use, and they're literally on the die. So if you roll a wild, you can pick whatever color or you can pick whatever number you want. But the darn score sheet makes you take a hit. You only get so many of them. So you have limited number of uses, no matter how many times it rolls, which I think is another nice little tension bit. But really where Noch Mal gets interesting is the points you get for columns are higher on the outside edges of the score sheet. So there's this weird element where but you have to start in the center column and then you spread out from there. And there's this interesting, at least when the way our meta is with our groups, you tend to like race for the edges to some degree because you want to complete columns on the outside for the bigger points. And then the game end is triggered when somebody has filled in 2 complete color sections, like all the red and all the blue. Boop, game over. It is dry. It is themeless. It is rolling dice and just marking off boxes on a score sheet. But it is engaging and fascinating. Every player is active on every turn. You have an active roller who gets first pick of a pair of dice, but then other people can choose from what's remaining, which is a must in this game. For something that is so, themeless, I really, really enjoy this one. I find it rewarding and interesting, because it adds those twists of, if you have a 4-block red section, you can mark 3 in there, and that's fine. You can use a 3 to mark in there, but then you have that one little single red block left, and you can only fill it in with a 1. You can't spread out these numbers. It's not that easy. They've put enough challenge, enough decisions in there about when and how you use the number values to make it really compelling. Of course, because it's Inca and Marcus Brand, and I would expect nothing less.
I remember the first time again, you taught this one to me and I was, oh, wow. Okay. There's a lot going on. I kept marking things I wasn't supposed to. Oh, I'm sorry. What? It has to be beside it over here. And I'm like, oh, I've totally screwed this up. So I definitely feel this one has a lot more going on than the average. And you nailed it with like, it's a sheet with numbers and it's a lot to take in. You think it's going to be simple just looking at it. And then when you start playing, you're like, okay, I really have to start paying attention here. So this is one where I feel like it's a little deceiving. It looks super simple, but you do have to have a little, it plays tricks on the mind and you really have to pay attention because you could actually really, really mess up and score poorly like I normally do. But I still enjoyed it. I still really enjoyed it. And I was happy that I was able to pick it up in essence. So if someone was just starting out with it, you might kind of go, oh, wow, this is a lot of first. It would take time to get used to it. But I think once you kind of clicks for you, you would enjoy how it works. And I'm not a numbers quote unquote person, but I still quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So.
I will say the one complaint that I've heard from people who even enjoy the game is that it can feel like it runs a little long. So you're definitely investing more than 15 minutes in a game of Noch Mal, which is Noch Mal. Does that mean not bad in German?
I know Mal in
in French
other languages
like
means
ill, right?
Mal? Yeah, it's bad. Bad. Okay. Yeah. So ill is like malad, but mal is like just bad. So you could be feeling bad or.
Okay. So it's not bad. So Noch Mal, they do run a little bit longer just because you're filling out this sheet essentially. I can definitely see that criticism. It's definitely not. I'm going to pull out a Quinto if I need a 20-minute game. If I'm ready and willing to sit down and invest like 40 minutes in one or 45 minutes, I might pull out Noch Mal. The other really cool thing, especially for us in the West, if you're going to invest in importing a copy of Noch Mal, they've actually released 6 extra score pads. They're not expensive, and you just use the dice that come in the base box that add different layouts as well. And you can all play the same one, or I really want to try mixing and matching them. I haven't played that way yet, but that's on my to-do list for sure.
Yeah, so you're an expert in playing, so that would work for you. I'm still kind of like baby level, and I think I might get confused. But I did buy the sheet, so it's something to strive for.
And that was Noch Mal.
All right, so we are just pushing forward with the strategic roll and writes, and that's why we're going to jump right into Saint Malo,
which we've actually talked about. I think you talked about it before in a shelf staple.
We did, because I think we had a chat about pirates, or I don't know. I think I could remember it was pirates in the game. Yeah, but here we are revisiting designers Inka and Marcus Brand. So there you go, another favorite of yours. Artist is Julien Delval and Harold Lieski. Publisher is Aaliyah.
We've pronounced this poor person's name like 14 different ways in this show.
I know. I'm hoping, to me, it looks like Harold Lieski. If it is, I apologize if it's incorrect, but I believe this is the correct pronunciation. We are going to find out. We will find out. So, published by Aaliyah and Ravensburger. So, this is as we said before, it's a strategic type game. It's on the lighter side, which is funny because I found that deceiving at first. I don't know if the first time we played it, it just took way too long the first time we played, but I believe it was based on the amount of players. Anyway, I've heard this game is played better with lower player counts. I don't mind it at the higher player count, but it is what it is. So what I like about this game before I get into it, it comes with its own wipeable boards. That never happens. Usually it's just paper. But these were I'm like, can I write on these? I don't want it to be permanent. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Anyway, I digress. I was impressed. So in the game, like other roll and writes, you're rolling dice to gain a variety of resources. You're trying to create enhancements like characters or buildings, and these are going to provide you with additional victory points, money, or special actions, such as altering the outcome of a die. So players are drawing symbols, which is another fun thing in this game, for your resources and basically anything that you're acquiring, like what is it? I'm trying to think here. Not merchants, like money. I'm blanking.
And
here.
I'm not helping you out.
Yeah, you're looking at me like, it's been a while since I've played it. But basically, any type of resource you're gaining, you can put you're drawing them on your board.
Yep.
In your city. Mm-hmm. So, for example, a player could build a storehouse. There it is, storehouse on a square, and then place a merchant. That's what I was trying to remember, nearby to gain money. So, placing those together is going to have mutual benefit. So that's what you want to do in this game. Certain actions or certain things that you're drawing on the board work better when they're placed beside something else. Something else that you want to focus on, and I know I can remember the last time, players need soldiers to defend yourselves from pirate attacks who want to destroy your town. Yes, pirates. I was right, because they use cannons. Pirates use cannons. Am I wrong?
Yeah. And swords too, but we'll go with cannons for sure.
Okay, we're gonna stick with cannons. And game end in this one. Game end in this one is
pause.
So the game ends when a player fills in their last empty space in their city, and then that current round is played through so that players have equal number of turns, and then the game is over. And I'm revisiting my talk about pirates, and it could potentially be swords. Suzanne, you might be right on that. It's been a while since I played this game. I still think cannon sounds better. So I will be honest, the first time I played this game, it did not go over well with my group. But I legitimately think that there were just some rules that were not taken into consideration properly. And because of that, it just was very lengthy. But I have been told by others, I have not played it at a lower player count, but I have been told by others that they prefer it with less players. They do find it gets very long with more players. But you're saying you found it very quick.
Well, I played solo. I honestly have only played St. Malo, just maybe once or twice multiplayer. I've played it solo a bunch, though. I love it solo. Wow.
That's so funny. We're like totally on the opposite ends of the spectrum there. Yep. It is definitely one that I think can lean to the longer side. But I mean, I found it hard to keep from being attacked from the pirates. I think I was just getting hit constantly.
Oh,
because I
interesting.
was so busy trying to, get my resource and focus on setting up my town really well. And I want to get the benefits, right? Because if you get on the outside walls, there's some benefits that you can get that way. And I don't know if I just lost my focus, but I'm like, oh yeah, so I might want to protect myself from attack. But that goes to show you that there's more to it than just a simple roll some dice, draw some shapes. Like you have other things to consider that would come out in your average board game per se versus, your average roll and write. So it's definitely one that I enjoy and was surprised at, actually, because I was like, oh, it doesn't seem like it'd be my type of game. Didn't go over very well. But once we caught on the rules and played it again, really enjoyed it. And this is another one where the box size is not small.
Yeah, it's definitely like a standard kind of Ravens. I mean, it's it's like a real game box size. I don't know what the bookshelf size, is that what they call it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would say so. It's in that, it's not massive, but it's definitely like your, I guess, average board game size. But anyway, I enjoy it. It's definitely one that I think if you're starting out with this one, I would probably heed people's caution and play with less players because I do feel it can get a little lengthy. So Saint Malo.
The only thing I would add is don't underestimate how fun it is to draw instead of writing a number or just marking off a spot. And I think that that's definitely some of the appeal of St. Malo, and not to imply that it's a dismissible thing. I think it's fun and it's evocative, and it makes your score sheet or your board feel unique to you.
Right.
And you can, I don't know, almost express yourself. If I don't want to over dramatize it, but I think, and there's a couple other roll and writes. I wasn't going to go into it, but there's one called Sunflower Valley. We might be talking about Harvest Dice. I don't know.
Harvest Dice, yeah.
Where you get to draw something, and I am a horrible artist, so it doesn't matter if you're a great artist or you have questionable artistic skills like I do. I think it just adds that little extra something to the experience. And St. Malo definitely has that.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely.
So those were the roll and write games that Mandi and I shared. And if we had to, as we're looking at like our top favorites, those were on kind of our overlap list. But there were a few that didn't overlap. And we thought we would dive into those for just a few more minutes. I know this is just roll and write overload, but hey, we started and now we cannot stop. So we're going to go on to Mandi, I think one that you are a fan of.
All right. So now I think we are ready to talk about Welcome to Dino. Wait, is that the door again? These darn solicitors.
Oh, hey, Mandi. Hey, Suzanne. I think I've lost Tom. He's not sneaking up behind me this time. So, first off, before I forget, Suzanne, when you get a chance to play The Mind, I want in on that play of The Mind, because just hearing your description of it, it sounds crazy, and I want to try it. Haven't had a chance yet. So anyway, that's out of the way. What I really wanted to talk to you both about was, well, your Shelf of Shame. I'm looking for an Essen status report. So one of the things I hate the most about going to conventions and making purchases is when I don't actually get these things played in a reasonable amount of time. When I, especially paying convention prices, which are usually higher than you'll be able to find later online or even local game stores, you're paying a premium to get them then. And if you don't actually get them to the table before they're available everywhere, it's, well, a little disappointing to say the least. I'm doing okay as far as Essen. It's been 6 months, almost 6 months since last year's Essen. And so far, as I mentioned last week, the Oh My Goods expansions I have not yet played. I rushed to get them, really wanted to add those to the collection. Haven't played those yet. Also, another expansion, the Bubbly Pop expansion, I still haven't played. It's a cute little game, but haven't actually played that yet. Another 2-player game that I haven't gotten to the table, Tokyo Highway. super excited to get it. I've managed to snag a copy, and yeah, I've gotten it out, read the rules, played with the pieces, just haven't played it. And a small card game called Iconicus, which uses icons to try and get messages across. Still haven't gotten that to the table. So how are you doing? You two purchased a little more than I did. 1 or 2 more games, I think. So how are you? Or do you have a shelf of shame that you are currently still trying to work your way through? It's hard, I know, and I'm asking you to confess a little bit, but I'm just curious. And how do you deal with, those last couple of stragglers getting them to the table when there's still new stuff to play through? Anyway, just wondering. Okay, bye.
Oh, wow. That's a really great question. And now I'm kind of scared to look at my shelves. Thanks, Eric.
I know,
but
right?
definitely, as soon as we see each other in person again, we will play The Mind. It will be fantastic as we meld our brains.
Okay, this sounds like I need to be a part of this as well.
100% you have to be. It'll be amazing. But Mandi, I think this is really a great point. First of all, I cannot believe it's been 6 months.
I know.
Since Essen.
That just flew. And I don't know what Eric's talking about. We didn't really buy that many games. I know. Okay, who am I kidding? Of course we did.
How do you even say that with a straight face?
How many times did Tom say, I'm sorry, more?
Oh, like he's one to judge, whatever. But wow, thinking about my shelves, yeah, it's one of those first ones. I'm super disappointed in Eric for not having played Tokyo Highway yet. My goodness, that game is amazing. And he worked hard to get that game too. I don't know if you remember.
I don't have a copy because I went to get one and they were sold out. And I do remember how hard he worked, and he hasn't played it yet.
And he hasn't played it. I'm very disappointed in you, Eric. But I don't know, Mandi. Am I very disappointed in you? How have you been doing on your Essen plays?
I have to say, I'm giving myself a little pat on the back here. I've been not too bad. Like, quickly go over the list. I think there's only about maybe 6 or so, considering that I brought back a fair amount of games. I think it's around the 6 or 7 ballpark, which I don't think is that bad, to be honest, considering that I have other games that I have to look at that are are on the priority list, and I still managed to plug through. But I'm sure I'm not the only one that has a balance of games unplayed. What about you?
Oh, don't you get all sassy with me, young lady. Yeah, definitely have some unplayed.
Yeah.
But I think similar to you, I prioritize them. Ultimately, that's what it came down to. Is we got back from Essen. We knew we had this huge load of games that we had to play in, and people were excited to play them, right? Because they're new and they're shiny. So I definitely got a lot of them to the table. And in point of fact, some of them have been played and already gone back out the door.
Wow.
Well, and that's just how it works out. Because even good games, it's not enough for a game to be good. It has to be great nowadays because there's so many good games out there. But let's see. Agra. Oh my gosh, man. Do you remember how hard we were working to get copies of Agra?
I remember.
And my copy of Agra is sitting still unplayed, unfortunately.
Well, it's a big one. Like, I've only played it, and that's why we haven't talked about it on the show. I've only played it the one time. I definitely like to get a couple more plays in before I talk about it. It's a lot to take in. I was surprised that I actually did as really, really well, actually, the first game. So I don't know if it's just me and oddly complex games that I just get, but I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to playing it again. But yeah, that definitely was one that we worked for. And especially you. It took you a while to get that one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because I missed it out. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
But other than that, let's see. I picked up a game, Harvest Island, and I think you and I were talking about this just a little bit ago, that you got a copy too, but neither of us have gotten it to the table.
Right.
Which is a shame because it looks really pretty and fun. And I think it was even on my anticipation list. I was super excited for it. Yeah, and still am.
It looks really good. I mean, it will get there eventually.
But other than that, I think, we picked up some smaller games or other games that weren't new.
Right.
That have definitely just been lingering. And I think that's partly what Eric's talking about. From a priority point of view, we prioritize some of the newer ones so we could talk about them and share the excitement of them. But haven't prioritized some of the older ones I picked up. But I'm excited to play them But I'll have to work on that prioritization thing for sure.
I'm hoping to get them played within the next month or two because, I'm working on other things for the channel, so I'm like avoiding
Top
saying what it is.
100.
Oh, I know. So I'm working on that, so I'm like, that's kind of taking priority right now. But I'm hoping within the next couple of months I can polish off the remaining Essen games.
And actually, a few other ones are games from like Japan brand. A couple of the games from Japan that I made a distinct effort to pick up, but just haven't managed to get to the table. And I think there's probably a few reasons for that. And, Eric, this was an inspirational visit because I am going to, my poor play groups, I'm going to make them. Darn it, we're going to have a play day and I'm going to pull out this stack of unplayed games that I want to play. And we're going to make an effort. Maybe that's it. Or instead of doing a big day, maybe every game night we make an effort to do at least one.
Yeah. I think
just one of these ones to not let them linger.
Yeah. And that's what we try to do. I have to say my game group's pretty cool. As I'll just be like, hey, you got to play all these games. They're like, okay. And they're pretty easygoing about it. So I think doing the whole, at least adding one to that pile of ones you have to play, I think that's great. It's a good way to get through them all. So.
Yeah. But I think we've done pretty well, Mandi. I have to say, we were going through the list, Otis and Newsfjord and all sorts of games from Essen that we carted back and punched and cut boxes for.
Oh, that
have hit the table. So good job. I think you do deserve a pat on the back.
Thank
Mandi.
you. I'm also giving myself another pat on the back, just so you know.
Well, Eric, I'm glad that you weren't trying to sell Mandi a vacuum cleaner because she was ready to go to town on this solicitation. It's always a pleasure when you visit us.
Absolutely.
So it was nice seeing you, Eric, and thanks for the great question.
Thank you for that wonderful question.
Paperback writer. Paperback writer.
All right, so now we are officially ready to talk about Welcome to Dino World. Yeah, that was my dinosaur. Okay.
That was a sleepy sounding dinosaur.
Close enough. This is designed by James O'Connor, artist. Best Sobel. And this,
the best.
I know. And this is a web published game. So for those of you that follow Gen Cant, this was the winner of the 2017 Gen Cant Roll and Write contest. So I have to say this was one that really stood out to us and very happy that it won. So as the name suggests, welcome to Dino World. We are managing a dinosaur park. I know, who wants to do that? But, it's a thing. And what you're doing in this roll and write is you're trying to build pens for your dinosaurs, and it's in a grid situation. You have buildings that provide special powers, and you need your roads to connect to your enclosures and buildings. Otherwise, you're going to have a slight problem. And this is what happened to me on several occasions. I couldn't get them to operate. Well, we had some escaping of the dinosaurs. Each turn players share the dice pool to work through the phases, which are adding dinosaurs and buildings to the park, drawing paths, connecting attractions to the entrance, and control dinosaurs attempting to escape. So as you can see, paths are really important. The game ends whenever a player runs out of space in the park or has had too many dinosaurs escape. My hands up here, guilty as charged. The player with the most fame from dinosaur attractions and the fewest penalties from breakouts is the winner. So that's the basic gist of the game. I have to tell you, I remember this game and I was like, okay, dinosaur theme, here we go. It's like another Jurassic Park thing. I really enjoyed it. And I thought that it was cleverly done. It was interesting. It was entertaining. And then when Beth, jazzed it up with her art and had the magic touch, it just all came together. I really like this game. I mean, is it extremely different than anything else that's out there? No, but I love the theme. Sorry, you had me at Dino World. Uh, and it kind of reminded me, it's not like Avenue, but it reminded me of the fact that you did definitely need to keep those roads open in order to score. My problem is I blocked myself off. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be lights out. And well, it was shortly thereafter, but I still had fun playing.
That is so great. I love that you brought Welcome to Dino World up. And I honestly didn't put it on my list because it's not a published game.
Right.
In that sense. But, in some ways, this is better than some of the other games we've already talked about that are hard to get in certain regions. Whereas Welcome to Dino World, people can just go to the website and download it and print it at home and have a fabulous experience with, 6-sided dice that they have at home. And so I'm glad that you brought it up. That's really cool. Great suggestion, Mandy. I applaud you.
Yay. So there you go. It's accessible if you wanna print it off and try it out. So that's a Welcome to Dino World.
Since you talked about Welcome to Dino World, I'll also dive into the Welcome to. Now, just, a couple of episodes, I talked about a game called Welcome to. Designed by Benoit Turpin, arts from Anne Heidsick, and originally published by Blue Cocker Game, and will be getting a larger release through Deepwater Games, which is very exciting. I'm not going to talk about it again. Go listen to the last episode where we go into Welcome to on a deeper level. It basically takes the best parts of Quinto and adds additional layers and a fun theme and some really pretty art, all to make a really fabulous game. And I wanted to mention it again because this is a roll and write episode. It does use cards instead of dice in a brilliant way. And, we talked about steamrollers earlier, Mandy. I got to say, steamrollers and Welcome to are going to fight back and forth for my number one and number 2 spot if I were to rank them, which I am not. But if I were, Steamrollers and Welcome to would be the 2 that are fighting it out at the top right now.
I really need to get my hands on Welcome to. Everyone's been talking about it, and I really need to get this. So that is on my list, the next roll and write that I will be acquiring. So looking forward to trying
very soon.
it.
Hopefully Deepwater will get it out to, North America very, very soon for you.
Crossing our fingers. But now that you talk about that, and I'm going to jump in, I hope you don't mind here, but we also had Qwix on the list. And the reason why I'm not going to go in too much depth about it is because it is one we've actually talked about. I believe we talked about it in the Tap That App segment where we talked about it as an app, because it's one that we all use. So again, if you want to check it out, you have to go back and listen to that podcast where we talk about it if you want a bit more details. But I find this is one that people you hear roll and write, oh yeah, Qwix. It's like a go-to. You know what I mean? It has very similar elements to some of the other games. Like, if you had Quinto, and I'm not saying it's the exact same, but I find it a very straightforward, family-oriented roll and write. Like, it's one that anyone can really play and understand. And it's a nice foray into roll and write. So I think
that's a great point. And, when I have people that ask me for an entry, where do I start? Beyond Yahtzee.
Right.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Qwix is the one I go to. In North America, and actually I think in Europe too, there's a deluxe edition that has some variable score sheet layouts and things like that. And it's inexpensive. It's accessible. It's a really, really great entry level roll and write. I'm really glad that you brought that one up too.
Yep. So that's Qwix.
Now, Mandy, you have played Qwingo.
Yes.
Right?
I have.
Okay. And Qwingo is actually a recent re-release of a game that was originally called Top 12, designed by Heinz Meister. And Top 12 is published by Schmidt Spiel, but Qwingo is actually published by Game Right. And Qwingo is QWINGO.
Yes.
And I wanted to bring up Qwingo because it is different. It has a really unique element. Can things be really unique? I guess you're just unique or you're not, but
it's semantics.
Linguistics.
It's fine.
You have this score sheet. It's a roll and write with just one die, one custom die. And it's a score sheet with columns, and each column corresponds to one of the die faces. And Top 12 and Qwingo have different themes, but in Qwingo, it's I think it's food themed.
Yeah, it
right?
is.
You have like a citrus fruit and a grape or whatever. And when you get your score sheet, you're going to seed it with 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And you can put these numbers anywhere you want on your score sheet. And then you just start rolling the die and calling out a number. Because the die, the randomization element does not dictate the value that you write.
Right.
The die indicates the column in which you write it. And then the numbers have to follow an ascending order from top to bottom. So the numbers at the top have to be lower than the numbers at the bottom. Right. So you call out 22 and then you roll the die, really just hoping that 22 lands, like you can use it in the the column that lands.
Exactly.
Which sounds very random, and it sounds very. This is definitely one, I don't know, Mandy. I'm struggling to explain it to make it sound compelling, but the openness is just whoa.
Yes.
That I get to say whatever I want, and then everybody has to write it. And so how people seed their sheets and the choices that they make, the luck of the die, and then how you adapt when the die either benefits you or just totally ruins a column for you. Is very, very cool. You have to pay attention to what everybody else has going on their sheet, because the number that you call out as the game progresses really, really matters. And ultimately, when all is said and done, all that number calculation and odds calculation and mitigation of the luck as you're figuring this all out, it's a race game, because the person to complete a column first wins. So that you don't get extra points for having higher numbers or lower numbers. You're just trying to arrange it so you can complete a column through this open number calling system, which is unique and interesting. And when I play it, I think it's fascinating.
I really liked it. My friend Tracy had purchased it. And I said, oh, okay. And I looked at it and I'm like, okay, it's going to be one of these. Okay, I'll try it. And I'm like, well, it has food in the game. All right, it can't be that bad. It was like, all right, it's got a +1 there. And honestly, we had so much fun. We did not think we were going to enjoy it. We had so much fun. That whole exactly what you were talking about. You just shouted a number. Let's see if they can make this number work. But it makes it so open, and it makes it difficult for other people. And I think and that's just based on using one die and calling out a number. That's really what it comes down to. And we had fun with it. Sometimes I think people will say, like, they have this expectation that things need to be overly complicated to be interesting. You can have something that's very open and even with that luck element and throws a curve into something, and just that could be like, oh, well, that's kind of different. And it's enjoyable, because that's the point, right? To be enjoyable. And I think just by looking at it right away and just kind of judging it based on what you see, I think a lot of people would shy away from it. They wouldn't think that it would be a good game. I really like it. It's not very expensive. It's one, again, it's in a slightly smaller box, one you could travel with or at least take out and travel with. I liked it a lot. I was actually pleasantly surprised. It's different.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoy it. Yeah. And that's Qwingo, or Top 12. I don't know if Top 12 is still in print, but Qwingo definitely is.
Yeah, Qwingo for sure. Like, and I think you can get that on Amazon or something for relatively inexpensive price. So this, if, we were doing a top 10 of games, would definitely be nearer the top of my list. And this is Granja No Siesta, designed by Andreas Odendahl. Artist is Harald Lieski. Wow, Harald is a busy person.
All over the place.
I know. And published by ADC Blackfire Entertainment, but most recently Stronghold Games. So La Granja is actually a board game, for those who don't know, but the No Siesta is a standalone, they say dice game, but it falls under roll and write, and it's basically a follow-up, but it is its own individual game. The objective is players are trying to collect resources, and you're going to try to cross them off on your scoring sheet in order to get the most victory points. And it's just not crossing stuff off. You have different sections of the board that you're trying to work toward. You can hire helpers, which will help you, and they have special effects. And I thought that was really neat, because it's a very similar element in the original board game. You can build a barn, which is at the top of your sheet to store goods, and sometimes you have to have a little time off for your siesta. And this is specifically talking about those little hats, the hats in the game, which is what you need on this track to kind of move up and end the game. The dice game is definitely on the lighter side than the original board game, but it still has the same, I don't want to say the same, but it has similar elements. I mean, if you've played the board game, you will see the similarities in the roll and write.
Sure.
So there are some slight differences. It is definitely going to be a slightly easier game, but you can definitely see the similarities. Every round, players are rolling dice and you're drafting them until everyone has 3 dice that they're able to use and score. Once the player completes the siesta track that I was talking about, that's the hats on the dice, the game will finish, and basically whoever collected resources most effectively will win the game. And like I said, there are a variety of ways to collect resources and complete sections of your sheet. And basically, you want to do it as effectively as possible. I really, really enjoyed this game. Now, I've played the board game, and I've played this with a friend who had not played the board game, and we both equally enjoyed it. It was in that kind of nice sweet spot where it wasn't overly complex, but it wasn't super easy, but you still felt like you were making decisions and you were being useful and you were doing something. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
It was just, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, where she, tries the different porridge and you get that one. It's just right. This is my just right.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Now, La Granja No Siesta did not make my list. I have played it a bunch and was totally enamored with it when it first came out.
Right.
But I'm going to be the negative Nelly for a second. And I still enjoy the game.
Right.
I still play it. I've played it solo. I've played it multiplayer. I actually really enjoy it multiplayer, and it plays okay solo, but I find the complexity of the setup is just one half step too much for me for what I want out of a solo play for such a quick game. So I tend to enjoy multiplayer more with that great dice drafting. Here's my biggest issue with the game.
Okay.
It's those darn hats.
Yes.
And what I have found is the game will drag on and on and on if people are not using those hats to move the time of the game forward, because the hats also have spots where you can mark them off for points, right? And so not only do you have to roll hats, you have to use hats to move the time nugget along the time track, right?
Right.
That's what they call them, right? Nuggets. But
sure.
Yeah, we'll go with that, right? Cannons, swords, whatever. That is my biggest challenge with No Siesta. It doesn't stop me from enjoying the game, but it's something that I am hyper aware of while I'm playing it. And it will influence the choices I make. So when the dice come up, when the hats come up, I will, even if I could potentially use them to score on my sheet, I will often use them. I will make an effort to use them to move my piece along the siesta track instead, so that the game is marching towards an end. Because I have been in a couple games that have dragged on far too long, and pretty much every player had everything marked off because you just kept on going. The game end hadn't been triggered. So that is my one caveat in No Siesta, is just to be aware. I don't think it stops you from enjoying the game. I still enjoy the game and have played it a bunch. That's the one flag I would raise for people just to be aware of when they're playing.
And it's funny. I'm glad you mentioned this, because in all the games I have played, and I played it a lot, that has never come up. And I don't know if it's just the type of people that I play with. No, I'm serious. And I'm really wondering if it's just the type of people I play with. It's never happened. Like, I'm able to play that game comfortably within my lunch break. Comfortably. Like, there's no...
Sure.
So, no, and I'm glad you brought this up now, because now I'm curious to try it with a different group, because I have several, play groups, and now I have a feeling that there's a specific group that I would run into that this would happen. And that's very interesting that I've played it with several people and it hasn't come up, and you're like, no, like, this has happened before. So do you think that's an intentional thing? Someone who is actually physically trying to say, hey.
No, I think there's the luck element too, because, they have a face that can kind of be wildish.
Right. That's right.
but the cube, right? And you can get the goods or whatever.
Right.
What is it called? The commodity?
Commodities, yes.
But you can't use it for a hat.
That's right. The hats are, yes.
And so I have been in a game where hats just weren't rolling. And if all that meant was you couldn't score certain elements on your sheet, it wouldn't be a big deal. But because it's so critical to trigger game end,
Right.
that's so we did have an odd game. And maybe that was an anomalous game. Totally willing to cop to that. It would be interesting to see if it's just your players move aggressively down that track no matter what. And my players were just more interested in filling out their score sheet and were more rewarded that way. But yeah, maybe give it a try again with a different group. Why don't we play together, Mandy?
You know what? Let's do that because I have a strong suspicion we're going to have a whole new opinion. Us playing it'll just be something completely different will happen.
Well, there you go. And that's
La Granja No Siesta.
Oh, you say it much nicer. Than
Yeah. Well, my my best
Mandy,
friend is Chilena, so
there you
she'd
go.
kill me if I didn't say it properly.
I just wanted to talk about two more. And thank you, everybody, for hanging with us. I know you may not share, Mandy, my passion for roll and writes, but thank you for bearing with us and enabling us to have so much fun talking about them. I have two more I want to mention. Sticking along those lines of Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, and La Granja, where you have kind of a parent game or an inspirational game, even if it's just a thematic or brand perspective carryover, there is a Zooloretto dice game. Mandy, have you played Zooloretto?
The only experience I've had with Zooloretto is Zooloretto Duel at Essen. That's the only time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Which perhaps is not the optimal version of Zooloretto.
Yeah, as we've discussed, yes.
I love Zooloretto. I think it's a fabulous game that really stands up. I think Michael Schock, the designer, is one of these core hobby designers, just so talented. Zooloretto, the dice game, is published by Abacus Spiel, and I think Z-Man did a release, but I'm not sure, to be honest, if it's available in North America right now.
Oh.
You know how Z-Man can be with their print runs and all that other stuff. That said, Zooloretto, the dice game, I think is an excellent example of a game that takes the inspirational game and translates it, streamlines it, adds a dice element, and gives you a new, small, compact package that plays beautifully. With Zooloretto, you're trying to fill up your zoo with different animals, and you have trucks, and you're assigning animals to the trucks, and then you take a truck and you put them in your thing. There's a whole thing. It's a whole full experience game. Zooloretto, the dice game, does that where you have dice with animals on them, and you have a score sheet. So you roll the dice. There is a little board, and you assign the die to any truck that you want to. There's multiples that you can pick from. And really what your choices are, roll dice and assign them, or pick a truck and take everything on it and assign it to your score sheet. Very, very simple. Very, very quick. But the choices that you are making when you roll those dice and then assign them to a truck, and when you take a truck, and how you assign those dice is you're paying attention to what other people having going on, because an alligator may be worth 3 points to you, but no points to me because I've already used them. So how do I break those up amongst the trucks that are available? And how do I want to set myself up for success while trying to make things less appealing for you? It's almost a kind of I split, you choose mechanism, which is another one I really, really love. Zooloretto, the dice game, plays super duper quick. At 2 players, I think it plays very nicely at 2, 3, and 4 players. At 2 players, it has some real fascinating tension. I love it at 2 players. Definitely worth a pickup if you're looking for a game that feels like it's captured the essence of the inspirational game, but plays very, very quickly. Zooloretto, the dice game's great. And I love that, at least in Europe, there's ongoing support, because just last year, they released 3 new score pads that introduced new twists on the mechanism. I love it. Zooloretto, the dice game, definitely worth a look if you can get a copy.
Well, I am obviously going to have to add to the list because, like I said, I've only had the one experience with Zooloretto, and it was fine. So I'd like to try, something a bit different.
I definitely recommend the real game, Zooloretto, and I definitely recommend Zooloretto, the dice game, Mandy. So I hope you get a copy.
For sure.
And if you don't mind, I'm just going to talk about one more. I know you got me started. I can't stop. I'm so sorry. Kind of not really, because I love this.
I was going to say, trust me, I don't think anyone's saying to stop. They're like, keep going. So keep going.
The last one I'm going to talk about is fairly new. It's Ganz Schön Clever.
Oh.
And this is right now only available in Europe, from what I can tell. Its publisher, Schmidt Spiel. It feels like it's in a family of games with Noch Mal that we talked about. Same general graphic design look, same size box, same size style, all that other stuff. Same publisher. This one's designed by Wolfgang Warsch, which, if you don't know that name, I suspect this is a name we are going to hear a lot more of in the coming years, because Wolfgang Warsch not only designed this excellent roll and write game, but is also the designer of The Mind that we just talked about.
Which I can't get right now, but continue.
I'm so sorry. I do feel bad about that. Soon. Pandasaurus is going to make it happen. And hello, The Mind, and then this excellent roll and write. I want to know what Wolfgang is coming out with next, because I am impressed. Ganz Schön Clever is similar to Noch Mal, where it is a dry, themeless score sheet with numbers and colors, and that is it.
You are not selling it, Suzanne.
I am so good at marketing. What can I say? And we actually had this in a Q&A an episode or so ago, where a listener was talking about, hey, I like thematic games. Roll and writes just don't have theme.
Right.
I've tried a few that said they had theme, and I can't get into it. And you know what? I respect that. I understand that. And I wish I had a better response or answer to it. And Ganz Schön Clever is not going to change this person's mind. But if you enjoy this type of roll and write game or an abstract game and things like that, this is the most combo-tastic roll and write game I have played. You have these different sections that are different colors that correspond to different colored dice. This is a very standard mechanism in roll and write games. We've talked about it a bunch already. And there's a nifty little thing where everybody there's an active player and then everybody else an inactive player. Inactive players will get to mark on their sheet on a turn. I'm rolling a die. I select one for its color and action. And if I choose a 4, every lower value die I give to the other players.
Oh.
Which instantly creates an interesting decision point, because I really need that 4, but I rolled 2 3s and I'm going to lose access to those dice if I take the 4 now. That is always, that provides a lot of interesting moments in the game. And then you re-roll. You don't get to save them up. You're not like, oh, I'll take it because I know I have that 5 over there. Oh, no. Once you take the 4, everything else gets re-rolled. So you never know what you're going to get next, which is incredibly pleasantly painful. And then you're marking off, there are different rules for the different colored sections on how you mark them off. They're very, very simple, but very, very clever. And how they score is different. There's sliding scales, must be higher. You're just marking off little grids, trying to go for maximum scoring area. It's got a lot going on in different sections. But where the game really shines, beyond that nice little dice, selection twist, is each section has these extra little icons. And when you finish a row or a column or hit a certain point on a track, it's different depending on which section you're in, you get a bonus action. You get an extra mark in that section, or you get to write an extra high number value here. You get an extra reroll or things like this. And this is one of the ones that it's essentially an engine builder. You are making choices to figure out where you're going to try to maximize to get to these bonuses. And it does have a slightly slow build, but geez Louise, by the time you hit mid-game all the way to the end, you are firing these things off. I finished this row, which gets me this bonus, which gets that row, that gets me that bonus. And you're creating these combos, and it's so incredibly rewarding to play. When you fire off those combos, you feel clever, and you are just having a blast, and you're enjoying kind of rubbing it into your other players. Like, look what I get to score. It is a really clever roll and write game that's doing a few things I haven't seen before in the niche, and definitely deserves attention. So hopefully we'll get people will get a chance to see this one. Keep your eyes open for it. That is Ganz Schön clever.
Yeah, that's definitely one that, well, as we're going to talk about in a moment, one that's on my current list that I will be acquiring.
I love it. Go shopping on Amazon.de, Mandy.
What do you mean? I'm already there. As we're talking right now, I'm like, oh,
I love it.
Let's put that in the cart. Here we go. Like, actually, do you mind? I'm actually going to tell you what is currently in my cart. And of course, 99% of them are roll and writes, except for one. Can I quickly say what they are? Okay. So crisscross, as you suggested. So
great little roll and write. Love it.
Yeah. We'll leave that one for now. That's on roll and write. Cruisewort.
Oh, we didn't talk about Cruisewort.
No.
What a shame.
So that's what I've not
You haven't played it, though?
No, it's in my cart right now, but I have not played it. It's only like about €7, so that's probably close to about $11 or $12 Canadian.
Yeah, that's not expensive at all.
Yeah.
Cruisewort strays into a word game roll and write.
Oh, I love it.
Hello. Great little game where you have 4-letter dice, I think. So you have 4 6-sided dice that have letters on them.
Okay.
And then you have a die that has, and they're different colors. So 4 different color dice. And then you have a color selector die. When you roll that, the color selector says which one of the colored die you can pick from.
Okay.
Like, and it has 2. So you have a little bit of options. And then you have a little 5x5 grid and you must write in a letter. And you're trying to write letters either horizontally or vertically. So it's a little bit of a crossword thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Not all letters are on the dice. There's like a dedicated vowel die.
Right.
And it has 2 E's and things like that to kind of increase your odds. But there's a die that has a wild side that can be any letter. So I think like J is not on one of the dice.
Right.
But you can always use a wild for that. And you're just trying to make the best word. So can you do a 2-letter word or a 5-letter word? You want to kind of maximize that, leverage the crossword. It's challenging. And thank you, Mandy, for bringing it up. I'm glad we got to talk about that a little bit. Cruisewort, if you like word games, there's a roll and write word game, and it's a darn fine one.
I'm excited. Maybe I can get my mom to play this because she loves word games. So that
Very
was
cool.
definitely what I can get her to try. And then the last one, which you just discussed, is Ganz Schön clever, which is also in the cart. Looking forward to that. So there you go. That is my current cart of roll and writes. I'm sure by the end of this, I will have added a few more.
You have excellent taste, Mandy.
Oh, hey, I learn from the best. So
before we wrap up this discussion of roll and write games, thank you, everybody, again. Mandy, I wanted to revisit something that you mentioned earlier.
what was it? Did I forget? What?
Well, we have all these scraps of paper, all these score sheets.
Oh, yeah.
What happens when you run out?
Oh, my gosh. How can I forget? So I have my handy dandy laminator that I use. And I swear, you just want to laminate everything because it's just so fun and relaxing. But this is really great for roll and writes. And I know you've talked about it. I know Z has also talked about it. So there are quite a few people who laminate. And I mean, it's a great way. You're not wasting paper. You get to reuse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a big fan of the lamination. However, you need to make sure you're buying the right quality. I find if you don't buy the right thickness of laminating sheets, I find sometimes they can be hard to clean off.
Oh, interesting.
So you might want to spend a little bit extra to get a certain type of laminating sheet when you're doing them. But
I'm glad you mentioned that because I actually get asked that a lot online. You know, Suzanne, what laminator should I get? And what I typically tell people is it doesn't matter. Right. Just any decent brand, Fellows, Scotch, Amazon, they're all fine.
Yep.
$20 to $30 range, you got yourself a laminator that'll work fine. A heat laminator.
Yep.
Mandy, you nailed it.
Yes.
Laminating sheets or envelopes are often called come in thicknesses that are similar to like card sleeves that have mills,
yeah,
whatever that measurement. I have no idea what a mill is
either.
I got no idea, but I just know that's what they use to measure like the thickness of them.
Exactly.
Standard, you're going to get like when you get the freebies in your laminator pack, it's going to be 3 mil thick. These are fairly thin. They will be fine. They do function. And I have plenty of sheets I've laminated with 3 mil, but I prefer 5 mil thick.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to strike a good balance between having some sturdiness to it,
yes,
but not like being able to cut you when you use them. Because like if you go to a print shop and you tell them to laminate something, first of all, they're going to say, great, one sheet is $10.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
And what? And then you realize also it's because they're using like 10 mil thick things.
Yeah.
And those things are,
It's like industrial.
you do not need that. If you're interested in roll and write games or laminate, and I'll tell you too, beyond our roll and writes, Mandy, all the games that have those thin cardboard player aids, they go right into my laminator every time.
I actually have a nice healthy pile waiting for me. It's been really busy, but absolutely. It just saves your games. And I mean, it's saving paper. I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to do it.
For sure. And exactly right. For people who worry about the lifespan of a game or the consumability of the game, a lamination solves that. And for games like, now I'm blanking, but Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, or Avenue, games that can literally play any number of players. You only get so many copies of that sheet. I have copies of Avenue that I've laminated a dozen sheets, and I have this little travel kit. And then I can play with a dozen people at the drop of the hat and not have to worry about it. So there's a lot of value in it. I know it's a little bit of upfront investment, but it just as gamers in general, but of course for roll and write fans, a laminator is kind of an essential tool.
Absolutely. I think the one of choice, and I know a lot of people use it, I think it's Scotch. That's the one that I have. You can get on Amazon and it's fairly inexpensive. I even bought, I don't even know what you'd call it. Usually, if you see them in the schools and at workplaces, it's like the guillotine kind of cutter.
Yeah, sure.
I bought a little mini one. It's so cute. Anyway, and I also got that on Amazon. So see all the things. I have Amazon Prime, so I can't help myself.
Oh, definitely.
But anyway, those are some fun little things that you can obtain and do, for a reasonable price and laminate all the games from your house. So there you go.
All right, everybody. If you are rolling out,
yeah.
I think we're gonna wrap it up here because this was a full episode of just all the goodness. Thank you as always for listening. I really hope that Mandy and I have brought more attention to some of the really cool roll and write games that are available out there. If you have any questions about them, either of us are more than happy to chat with you about them.
Absolutely.
Definitely can email us at Suzanne@dicetower.com or
Mandy, that's Mandy with an I, at dicetower.com.
We always love hearing from you, talking about games, and answering any questions that you might have about games or the show or anything like that. Next episode, gonna be a good one. I am so excited because...
Oh,
dun,
boy.
dun, dun.
Top 10 games that teach English. Oh, I better make this fantastic because who knows when it may happen again.
It's going to be fabulous, and I'm going to relish every number 9, number 7.
Stop it.
It's going to be good. So don't forget to tune in for that episode, recorded live at Gathering of the Friends, right?
Yeah, it's going to be good times. I'm really excited.
Thank you again, everyone, for listening and joining us on our Roll and Write Adventure Deep Dive Focus episode. It is an honor and pleasure to have you with us.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vazel Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvazel.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandy, and Eric, with assistance from Itai Perez, Derek Porter, Rob Searing, and Jeff Rademacher. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right. And we're ready for that favorite part of the show, Two Truths and a Lie. So last week, I talked a lot about school. So in school, I enjoyed data processing. I enjoyed the sciences, and I enjoyed art. If you guessed that the lie was I enjoyed data processing, you would be correct. Oh my goodness. I had to take a computer course and I said, oh, data processing, that sounds like it could be interesting. Little did I know I had to build a computer game, and let's just say I did not know very much about computers. I built a Jeopardy game. It was a struggle and I hated every minute of it.
Oh.
It was painful. It looks really good though, and it actually worked quite well.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. I like the data processing. I like the sciences.
I know, you like that? I had to make
that
it.
Sounds like the Twitters, the sciences.
Yes, I love science. It's great. What about you, Suze?
Last week, I said I like pomegranate in guacamole.
Uh-huh.
I like mayo on peanut butter sandwiches. And I like pineapple on my pizza. And the lie is that I like mayo on peanut butter sandwiches. I know a person that eats mayonnaise on peanut butter sandwiches, and I struggle to process that reality. But more power to them. They like it. I'm not gonna yuck on their yum.
I've heard.
But yes,
whipped cream too.
I can almost see that
better
okay. Than mayo. The sweetness and like the marshmallow fluff and banana and peanut butter. I can see that, but yes, I do like pineapple on my pizza.
I was just about to say, is that the lie?
Yeah, you might wish it is, but it's true. And hey, if you've never had pomegranate seeds, if you like added to your guacamole, I highly recommend it. Delicious.
Okay, that I'm willing to try.
All right, what's new for you this episode, Mandi?
New for me this episode. Here we go, and I think you'll sense a theme here. I really enjoyed George Clooney as Batman. I really enjoyed Michael Keaton as Batman. And I really enjoyed Christian Bale as Batman. What about you, Suze?
I think that we are very simpatico this week.
Oh.
I like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. And I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
Look at us with the superheroes. So there you go, everyone. Just a very thematic Two Truths and a Lie. Good luck. New from USAopoly is Deadpool vs. the World. Deadpool makes his mark on adult gaming in Deadpool vs. the World, a hilarious party game for mature audiences. Featuring 100 custom illustrations of Deadpool in very strange and unsightly situations, players face off against their friends by filling in the blanks on caption cards to provide the most outrageous explanations of Merc with mouth predicaments. The player who best describes Deadpool's compromising situations wins the game. Available for pre-order at your favorite local game store today. It's for 3 or more players and for ages 17 and up.